When your company earns unlimited 2% cash back on all purchases with Capital One, that's serious business. So Stephen at SandCloud got a serious business card, the Spark Cash Plus card from Capital One.
We used our 2% cash back to help build our retail presence.
Savvy, Stephen.
And we get big purchasing power, so our business can spend more and earn more.
The Spark Cash Plus card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/SparkCashPlus.
Former Southwest Kansas Bank CEO charged with embezzling nearly $50 million from a now-failed bank, former Heartland Price.
On today's show, we're going to a small town in Kansas to hear about a trusted bank CEO and a devastating scam.
Shane Haynes served as CEO of Heartland Tri-State Bank in Elkhart. He initiated 10 outgoing wire transfers totaling more than $47 million to a cryptocurrency wallet.
It's the story of a bank failure in a small town in Kansas.
And a betrayal that shook the town of Elkhart to its core.
He then lost those funds to an unidentified third party controlling the crypto accounts. Sentencing for Haynes is set for August 8th.
Welcome to What the Hack, the true cybercrime podcast. I'm Adam Levin.
I'm Beau Friedlander.
And I'm Travis Taylor.
Well, this episode is going to work a little differently. Why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, okay. So I recently had the opportunity to talk to Max McCoy. He's a journalist and has been a professor of journalism at Emporia State University for 17 years, where he specialized in investigative reporting, nonfiction narrative, and free speech issues, as well as being the author of several books.
I've done several. The coolest was the Indiana Jones series, and I wrote 4 original novels based on the character. These were licensed by Lucasfilm, and I got a chance to do 4 original adventures with Indiana Jones.
Okay, now that is really cool.
Okay, so I spoke to him and I brought some clips from our conversation because he was covering a really interesting story in Elkhart, Kansas.
Well, Elkhart is in extreme southwest Kansas. It's a town of about 2,000 people, just across the line in the Oklahoma panhandle. So this is an area in which people have learned to be self-reliant. They're fierce individualists. The other thing about this area is that just across the line in the Oklahoma panhandle, it is even more sparsely populated, and the terrain is just as rough, if not rougher. This was an area of Oklahoma that was called no man's land for decades because they didn't form a government. It wasn't really part of Oklahoma. They didn't even really form counties until much later.
Well, what is this place like?
Well, I think the easiest way to illustrate what it's like is to hear a recent story in the news there, which kind of blew my mind. And I don't think it's fair to characterize the whole place by what happened there in this particular instance, but it does not happen in Redding, Connecticut that way.
From a mural by John.
When I first started looking into the area, a story popped up, which I think, maybe even went national. It was a Saturday before Easter of this year, actually. 2 women, Veronica Butler, 27, and Jillian Kelly, 39, both of Hugoton, Kansas, went missing in the Oklahoma panhandle, the same area you were just describing, no man's land. They were going to pick up some children. There was a custody dispute going on. What I took away from the story was a sort of lawlessness. It's the only way I can describe it. Is this story typical? Is it in any way connected?
The individuals who have been charged with this crime have been described by Oklahoma authorities as part of an anti-government group called God's Misfits. They were part of the sovereign citizen movement. They were also extremely religious. They believed in QAnon theories. And, for example, they also believed that their children were literally their property, and that no court, no government had any authority over them. So this is the wrinkle in this. It's not just a child custody case, but it's a case about what is the authority of the government in everyday lives, and even to the point of, adjudicating what would be a bitter, but not far from run-of-the-mill custody case, I think.
It sounds like the people in this part of the world take alliances and allegiances pretty seriously.
Yeah, and Max actually talked about exactly that when I called him up.
In this area, a person's word is their bond. They value loyalty. They value a sense of community. And this is one of the things that has really struck me about reporting on the bank failure in Elkhart, that more than anything, that this is about the broken trust a community had with its local bank.
So it sounds like the place itself is a character in the story.
Yeah, kind of like the hotel in The Shining.
All right, that works.
Elkhart was ground zero, the dust storms of the 1930s. One of the most famous pictures of the Dust Bowl was taken on Main Street in Elkhart, showing a storm looming over town. And you can take that photo and you can compare it to the town now and pick out all of the buildings, and it still looks very similar. And in addition to dust storms, in addition to drought, they also experienced the crime wave of the 30s. Their bank was robbed, for example.
Sounds like their bank may have been robbed again.
I thought we were talking about a pretty straightforward scam.
I thought those things, but let's keep going.
It is the kind of area that you would think of, well, you saw the movie Bonnie and Clyde, and and remember any of the scenes from the very rural areas. The town still pretty much looks like that, and many of the businesses in town are buildings that were there from the founding of the town and through the 30s. It still retains that Dust Bowl character.
Well, now you've described a situation of fierce individualism. You've described a place that is in some ways a throwback, and a place that almost sounds like it's its own country. Heartland Tri-State Bank was a pillar of a local economy that was, to be frank, tiny, infinitesimally small. It provided financial support and stability to its residents, largely farmers, and it was exactly the kind of place where this kind of crime would make a lot of sense and be really easy to do.
When you say local economy, do you mean like a small town or a county or just a wider area?
Yeah, it's like a small town, basically.
A small town with a bank CEO with a larger-than-life flaw.
Yeah, there is that sort of classically tragic side to this story.
Shan Haynes was a charismatic rural banker, extremely influential not only in his community, but also in the industry. One of the things he did was describe the trust that the community had in him and his bank by saying, sometimes we have farmers who will have a mortgage payment or something, and they'll come and they'll leave the cash for this on the seat of the truck.
Huh. Whose truck? His truck?
Yeah, his truck. They deposit this money in the bank, and then later they'd figure out who left it and they credit the account. But this amount of trust, I think, really is unheard of now. So
what
he was
could possibly
also
go wrong.
Yeah.
They didn't even say what it was for. If there's anything about this place that stuck out for me, it is a place where people mind their own business and believe that their own business is their own business.
Beau, it feels like there's an anomaly here. Everybody knows what's going on in everybody else's life, but everyone also carries secrets.
It's the kind of town where people think they know everything, and they certainly know what the town drunk is up to and what the town hothead is up to, but I think there are a lot of secrets, and the general vibe is something Travis will understand. It's kind of a German-American, Lutheran, none of your business.
Ja, das stimmt.
Exactly. I mean, this is a farming community. So if I give you $10 to go and plant some seed, you damn well better do it. And you damn well better do it right. Because I need to know that you can do what you say you're going to do. And so the farmer who takes a loan to grow a season's crops is somebody who needs to be competent, and the banker running the bank that's making that possible also needs to be competent. And everybody really believes that that is one of the core values, I think.
So it sounds like there isn't a lot of room for error here.
I think that there's more room for error when you're talking about a group of people who assume competency.
Assume nothing.
But there is a downside to thinking everybody's a boob, and there's a downside to thinking everybody is going to do their job right, too.
But I think the one thing a lot of people can agree living in small towns is you trust your bank with your life.
Prosecutors say the loss did cause the bank to fail last summer. Prosecutors also allege Hanes purchased cryptocurrency with funds embezzled from a church and a local investor.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
So, Beau, we're going back to tape now, right?
Yeah, 100%. So let's look into who exactly Shan Hanes is. So, who is Shan Hanes?
Shan Hanes was the CEO of the bank.
In 1993, Shan Hanes begins his journey at Heartland Tri-State Bank as an agricultural loan officer. Now, this isn't a huge job, but he did it well enough to rise through the ranks until he was eventually the CEO, and eventually a guy giving testimony to Congress. I mean, he was at the American Bankers Association.
No, the American Bankers Association. That's legit. So he was doing big things.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
No, for sure.
He had deep ties in the area and may have been the most influential person in the community. Certainly, he was one of the most influential persons in the community. And according to a report on the bank failure that came out months later, that the influence that he wielded was the number one factor that led to the failure of his bank. He had so much influence and folks had so much trust in him, whether they were people in the community or his bank employees, that they would take his explanation without questioning, or in the case of bank employees, violate the regulations the bank had on, for example, the amount of money transfers, the amount of wire transfers that they could do. Some of the wire transfers were over $10 million, which...
He was the CEO of the bank, of course, and he also was a person who gave testimony before Congress on banking things. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, he was not a huge fan of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
I am shocked.
Bankers generally aren't.
So, and outside of the bank, Hanes was deeply involved in the local community, taking on leadership roles in not only banking associations and investment groups. He had an investment club, but also at his church and his peers there. He was a church elder.
The church connection plays a role later on, right?
It sure does. No, this is a man who must have been listening to a lot of football coaches. He used everything he had, he used. So.
Okay, Elkhart is a small community, and Shan Hanes is a big man in a small town.
For sure.
He wields a lot of influence.
He also has, I think, a tremendous amount of confidence in himself. I think that's something that I get from this guy.
Sort of sounds like the bad guy from Roadhouse.
Oh, I never saw Roadhouse. Don't tell anyone.
It was good.
Oh, you're missing out.
So how do we go from big guy, highly respected in a small town, exuding enormous confidence and arrogance, almost bringing down the town.
Well, the key word is arrogance. So in December of 2022, Shan Haines ventures into the world of cryptocurrency. Initially, he's using his own personal funds to explore this emerging financial landscape.
Small investments, cryptocurrencies.
However, as his interest in cryptocurrency grows, so does his ambitions.
And he kept putting more and more money into it.
And this leads him down a treacherous path.
So big fish in a small pond starts going after a medium-sized pond, maybe?
Wants to be a whale.
Whatever. Jumps through the canal, finds a way, like hooks onto a stork's talon, gets dropped in a bigger pond.
Beau, what about like big man at a community college becomes big man at a major university?
Yeah, that sounds about right. So he finds himself using everything at his disposal, which is essentially trust. He has the trust of his community. He begins diverting funds first from the bank, and then from his church, and then his investment club, all to pay for this cryptocurrency habit that it looks like he's formed. Now, the problem is he's embezzling money to finance these schemes.
Shan just did not think that anyone else could tell him what to do.
Sort of sounds like a classic control fraud.
Oh, Travis, that's one of your favorites. Go ahead, explain it.
That's when a higher up in a company is in a position to be able to commit fraud because they can overcome or bypass the checks and balances against fraud.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so control fraud. So what kind of investment club was it? Was it big? Was it small? Did it have a lot of money?
Well, I'm not sure how much money they had, but they had some characters in it. You know, some people collect Corvettes or, old Stingrays and other kinds of Corvettes. I don't really know Corvettes, but, guys who collect stuff. This guy collects, I kid you not, movie theaters.
Oh, that was Brian Mitchell? I think that was his name.
Yeah,
right?
Mitchell, that's right. And so he collects movie theaters, and he collects specifically movie theaters with cool old fixtures. He just likes the feel of an old-timey movie theater.
I love I love movies, as you know. Love old theaters.
The problem here is I would have sicked you on Mitchell, but he clammed up. He didn't want to talk after a little while. But, Mitchell enters the story later on when Haines is upside down, when he needs some cash to loosen up some cash.
This almost sounds like he wasn't upside down. He was circling the drain.
The more that we get into the story, the more it appears that Haines was not investing in cryptocurrency. He was being scammed.
You said that Shan Haines needed cash to get cash. What do you mean exactly here? Why would he be paying money to get his money?
Yeah. Well, you know the beats of these scams well enough, Travis, to know that oftentimes when you're involved in a cryptocurrency scam, specifically one that utilizes an app that shows you how much money you're making, that the scammer will sometimes say to you, there's been a problem. And yes, you did make $12 million, but in order to transfer it, we need to collateralize and put up $50,000. And that wasn't the amount they asked for here. It was more like $12 million.
Well, a lot of the crypto scams that we've heard from have someone getting into crypto by being introduced to it by the scammer. Do we know if the Shan guy went into crypto willingly and then someone found him there, or was he sort of pulled in like a pig butchering scam?
It sounds like it was a pig butchering scam, but because this story takes place near the Oklahoma Panhandle in Elkhart, we don't know. Because if you're from Elkhart, are you really going to talk about you getting snookered?
Right.
But like, and if you were in the process of snookering people, you're also not going to say anything. So this is like that logic question, which is, you want to get to the village where everyone always tells the truth, and you meet a man at the crossroads. What do you ask him?
How's the crypto market looking?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how much money are we talking about here, Beau?
A lot. Between May 30th and July 7th, 2023. So, not a very long period of time, Hanes orchestrated a series of wire transfers totaling $47.1 million.
Say that again?
Yeah. $47 million. And this is all coming from the bank that he ran. He was manipulating employees. He was doing stuff that you can only do when you're the CEO. It actually sounds like control fraud, like you become the CEO of something and then you can run it into the ground because you're running it. He was in a position to make wires happen that the rest of us mere mortals wouldn't be able to make happen.
I think that he had such an incredible sense of self-authority that he got himself into a situation where he was perhaps first the victim of this scam that he fell victim to. And then, if the government allegations are to be believed, that he became then the victimizer to try to get himself out of that. I can't imagine what it would be like to steal $47 million from one's employer, one's community. The FDIC came in and they made good the depositors' money, but people who were investors in the bank or members of the board, those who owned the bank, were not. The local prosecutor called it devastating. In terms of the church, I've been told by a source who was in a position to know that a third party made those debts good, so the church did not fail.
So it sounds like this could be pretty straightforward. He got into crypto and he started embezzling to feed his habit.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what happened here? Is there some scammer pulling the strings?
I don't know. Here's what Max said.
Someone had gained his trust, and he kept putting more and more money into it. And what Brian Mitchell, the theater owner, told me is that Shan even had an app on his phone that he showed him that claimed to indicate how much money he had invested and how much he had made. But obviously it was a fake of some kind. And as Shan got deeper and deeper into this, the timeline, the amounts of money get bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where in early July, that according to Brian, that Shan asked Brian to come meet him at the bank, and that he sat down and said, well, I've got these investments in cryptocurrencies. He showed them the app on his phone, and he said, in order to get my money out, there's a problem. I need another $12 million to be able to do this. And Brian said he listened carefully to this, and he said he would not give him the $12 million. And he asked him, he said, Shan, doesn't this sound like a scam to you? And I'm paraphrasing here, but he asked him, wasn't this a scam? But apparently Shan was already into this for about $30 million or so at this point. By the end of the month, everything would collapse.
All right. The real question is, did he lose the money as part of a cryptocurrency scam? Or was there even a cryptocurrency scam in the first place?
Yeah, I had the same question. Club. I know that Brian Mitchell has gone on the record, and he really does believe that this began as a scam, and that in the process of being scammed, Shan Hanes was transformed from a victim into a criminal.
Brian Mitchell, the theater owner, did tell me that he understood that Shan Haines actually took a flight to Australia to meet with the individuals he thought had taken the money from him in an attempt to get it back, and then came back, of course, empty-handed. And it seems to me that Shan either suspended his disbelief so much that he went all in, or at some point he had to know what he was into.
He goes to Australia. That's not a small trip from Kansas to find out, to meet with the folks who supposedly have his funds.
I mean, strictly speaking, it's not his funds.
Let's say it's his borrowed funds.
Let's say maybe $1 million of it's his. I mean, come on. So, all right, whatever it was, maybe it was 5 million, maybe it was 10 million. So he goes to Australia to go and sort everything out because he is the guy. And the guy comes up empty. But that trip to Australia, that does have the smell of authenticity on it, right? Because why would you go there if you were just pulling a scam?
I mean, he could be covering his tracks and get out of the country at the same time.
He's now lost all this money, and then he goes to Australia. Why would he go to Australia to go chase the money if he wasn't the victim of a scam?
And why would he know to go to Australia in the first place, Beau?
Well, apparently that's where these transfers were going. But therein lies a really interesting tale, which is when Max McCoy went to the prosecutor to get all of the depositions and the supporting documents for the case against Shan Haines, guess what? There were none. There was no record of the wires. There was no deposition taken, and nothing was made available to him. There is no record.
So you're telling me this is a federal case, but there's no evidence?
Pretty much.
I had a hard time getting this prosecutor on the phone. From the very beginning, he didn't want to talk. I filed a formal request, and the request was denied and was told there was no affidavit.
I mean, wouldn't you expect to see, at the very least, in a crime of this nature, the documentation of the wires being sent?
I wouldn't expect that any of this information would have been sealed.
Why would it? I mean, you're saying like $47 million went walkabout. Okay, how? Show us where the money went. Fair enough. He went to Australia because I assume that's what the wiring documents said happened. The money went to Australia. Well, where are you going to go? Australia. He goes to Australia. He doesn't find anything. But from where we're sitting, we don't even know where the money went.
Shan is accused of stealing $47 million from the bank, the institution in the community. If someone had come in and held up that bank and gotten a few tens of thousands of dollars, would they have been shown the same deference in regard to things like bond amount, bail amount, house arrest, whatever, that Shan, I think, has enjoyed?
We're in the dark. We have no idea what's going on. And Max McCoy described going to the town and walking down the streets of that town, trying to engage people in conversation, and nobody would talk to him.
I went to Elkhart. People were very reluctant to talk about the bank failure, and I spent a day in the local cafe, going up and down Main Street, making phone calls, and there wasn't anyone willing to go on the record and talk about what had happened. I think many of them did not really understand what had happened and did not know, so that could be part of it. I also got the sense that the town was somewhat embarrassed by what had happened, that this fracture of trust reflected badly on the community, and they just didn't want to talk about it.
from what Max said, it's one of those towns where, because it's so small and it's everyone's part of everything, that it could be very embarrassing to the town, to the financial institution, to the law enforcement community in that town. It's a big hit.
Well, the other thing is people don't want to make a bad situation worse. And I know from my own family that comes from Kansas, not 2 hours away in a town just as small, that the reaction would be when, if asked about old Shan Haynes, I think my grandmother would have said something along the lines of, "You have no idea what was going on in his life. People go through hard times. It's none of your business."
I've seen that. I've experienced that.
And so I don't know what we're dealing with, because there's definitely in that world, from the one I know from Kinsley, Kansas, which isn't that far away, but is that it's a pretty flinty place, and people are not going to volunteer information willingly, and they're certainly not going to embarrass themselves. And you're also dealing with a situation where a lot of people, there's 23 employees at that bank. A lot of people at that bank lost their money for good. It was not FDIC insured. The only people who were made whole again were people who banked there, not the employees. So you may not be getting answers because people just want to be in a holding pattern until they know what's what. It's hard to say, but there's definitely big questions on everyone's mind. Like, where does $47 million go? It doesn't just vanish. You don't just send it to somebody who texts you a link for a crypto app and poof, it's gone. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it's all too easy to fill in the gaps with speculation when no one really knows what happened.
So my favorite part of interviewing Max was learning that he was from the Ozarks. And the reason I like that is because I actually like the show Ozark. And Ozark, if you watch that show, has all kinds of shady stuff happening. That's a good segue here for my question, which is, are we looking at all kinds of shady? Or is this just a regular old pig butchering scam? Now, I'm not saying that any crime was committed by Shan Haynes, other than the ones that he's alleged to have committed, which, a court will sort out. He hasn't been convicted of any crime. But I do have a question, which is, in a place where folks take the law into their own hands and they bury the fruit of their efforts in the panhandle, isn't it possible that somebody screams pig butchering scam, but the money's actually on a hard drive somewhere buried in that panhandle too?
Well, I think the real issue is the money's gone. It's gone from the financial institution. Whatever the motivation was to make that money go away, to me, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is that money was moved. It wasn't his money.
True. That is all you need to know. Except if he does 5 years and then digs up that hard drive and has $47 million, I don't think that's very fair.
I can see your point there.
But we can't, it's just, a dumb hypothesis on my part. I don't know. I mean, this is me just hoping that there's a more interesting story here. And also not believing that the CEO of a bank, and I don't care how podunk the town was, would fall for this kind of scam.
One thing I have to wonder, though, is that maybe a scammer contacted him and gave him the promise that he would be able to make money that he could keep for himself, and asked him if he had access to more money.
Let's say it was a pig butchering scam. Okay, fine. Shan Haynes is a great target. He is an expert, clearly has a gigantic ego. He likes giving testimony in front of Congress, and he's the CEO of a bank. He has all the prerequisites for somebody who has the ability to move money. Okay, let's go after him.
Right, and then if they can dangle the idea of him having even more money on top of what he already has, that might be irresistible and overcome some of his natural skepticism.
Now, let's add to that sort of an old boy group, the investment club, and, and his cronies at the church, and you name it. This is a place where being an elder matters. And if someone who is an elder, a respected person in the community, says, listen, I sort of screwed up. I got $47 million right now, kind of in hock, and I need $10 million to get it out. Can I count on you for $5 million?
Well, it sounds like this is the point where it graduated into becoming an affinity scam.
Where did we hear about an affinity scam?
That's the episode we did with Sarah Ganim and Karen Given, where we were talking about the Chloe Berthman saga.
Well, so if the scammers are top echelon and they're looking to make a big hit, then, I don't know, think Ocean's 11. There's some planning that goes into it, right? There's some A-game people involved doing research, and they figure this out. Well, he's involved with this investment club. Well, he's involved with this church. He is the CEO of a bank. We have an affinity scam tied up in a pig butchering scam with lipstick all over it. Maybe Shan Haynes would actually be able to use this in his favor. A podunk, too big for his britches dude who got way over his head. But it could also be that it was a guy who knew exactly what he was doing, and somebody needs to put his feet in a bucket full of scorpions and ask him some questions.
Well, come on. Podunk is not a nice thing to say.
And neither is a scorpion pedicure.
So if you guys look at the pattern of behavior, embezzling from the bank, use of funds from the local church, an investment club to invest in cryptocurrency, his cryptocurrency, kind of suggests a pattern of financial mismanagement and, shall we say, questionable decision-making.
The bottom line is there are certainly all of the elements of a great scam here perpetrated by expert scammers, but there's also the possibility that the only scam being perpetrated here is by bank waba.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked before, too, that Bernie Madoff was very much leading an affinity scam. But I think in the case of Bernie Madoff, they actually managed to finally get him because there was evidence. And the fact that the Kansas bank commissioner didn't provide or didn't even have any records pertaining to the crime makes it seem like there may be something more pervasive about the corruption in play here.
I think that, the difference is the only person who was privy to what was happening with the money missing from Heartland was Shan Haynes, whereas Bernie was representing to all of his investors that they were doing great. Meanwhile, he was just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic of financial doom that he created in the lives of lots of people. There's a difference, and the difference is, nobody knew. Nobody signed up for Shan Haynes' crypto adventure. And the folks with Bernie, they did sign up for it. They just didn't know what they were getting. So Shan lost the $47 million. The bank collapsed. It was rescued, but it collapsed. And we still don't know what happened.
Absolutely. If the procedures had been followed that the bank had established, and in the federal procedures as well, none of this would have blown up into a $47 million collapse.
I do know that I have a plane ticket to Kansas, and I'm going to start scouring the panhandle for a thumb drive with a metal detector. So if you want to join me, come.
Join you in a shallow grave in the panhandle? No, thank you.
Or to quote George Carlin, it's a mystery. So what's the lesson here?
You know what scams thrive on? Darkness. They thrive on you not asking if something is real, not saying, hey, what do you think about this? it thrives on people saying, I don't care what you think about it. I'm going to make a mint. Watch me. Or don't watch me, actually.
Don't trade crypto with strangers you meet online. Or even failing that, if you're going to install a crypto trading app, make sure you get it through the App Store.
Yeah, there's that. Can you imagine? Chances are that the app that he was using was downloaded by a link that they sent to him.
I am sympathetic to Shan's family. I hope that the community can recover. I think there's every sign that it will. I mean, Dream First Bank, another local bank, came in and took over the tri-state operations. I think transparency would go a long way to restoring trust in the community, because the type of questions that you asked, well, how involved was Shan in this? Was there even a pig butchering scheme? There really needs to be evidence of that aired publicly, I think, to make this community trust again, I think.
You know, Supreme Court Justice Brandeis was famous for saying sunlight is the best disinfectant. If we don't have the bright light of day shining on these dark corners of the internet where really serious crimes are being committed, we're really sunk. So what can we do to make that sun shine?
First, you have to have transparency and accountability, which means you got to know what's going on in the institution, and people have to be held accountable. There can't be somebody that can overrule everybody in order to do what they want to do.
Well, and with that transparency, you definitely want to include the FINRA, money, the trail, the where the money went, when it was sent, who got it, all that.
That's true. Of course, the big issue with cryptocurrency is once it goes somewhere, you can trace the money until it's dispersed. You can't necessarily figure out who it went to.
Well, actually, any major crypto exchange is required by law to keep pretty rigorous logs of any incoming and outgoing currency.
So there's a good chance that whatever Max McCoy wasn't able to see has a lot of answers.
Yeah, potentially. But if the money that he was embezzling here was going directly into someone else's crypto wallet, that would not have required a cryptocurrency exchange. You can just make one-to-one transactions, and that has a lot less of a digital trail behind it.
And just to be clear, that could be the crypto wallet of the scammer or the crypto wallet of the person doing the embezzling.
Yep, that's right. It's the difference between handing someone cash or taking someone to the bank and giving them a check.
That brings us to our second point, which is vigilance in investments. With cryptocurrency and with any investment opportunity, you've got to conduct thorough research. You have to exercise caution before you invest anything, and be very wary of something that promises huge returns with little risk, because they often turn out to be not so kosher.
And you need to be aware of red flags. So if you're hearing about an investment opportunity with unusually high returns or requests for large sums of money with really vague explanations, just back away. It's almost definitely a fraud.
Well, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
All right, it's time for the tinfoil swan.
Our paranoid takeaway to keep you safe on and offline.
All right, Adam. So what is on your mind this week?
Give me a second.
You all right there, buddy?
Yeah, I just got a text asking if an invoice is real or not.
Oh, I get that a lot.
Yeah, it's not always so easy to tell. What did you text back?
Same thing I always say. If you don't want to feel dumb, wait for another invoice to come.
Oh, brother.
Pure poetry.
Yeah, minus the Johnny Cochranism. I do say the same thing, actually.
There's a big difference with the invoices that come your way claiming to be sent on behalf of a major company and the sort of shadier looking invoices that are being sent by criminals.
Yeah, well, the difference between those two entities is the criminal makes less money, actually, if you think about it.
No, Travis is right. I mean, the organization has systems in place for collecting money that they're owed.
Exactly. And criminals usually don't, which means that you're really not going to get a second invoice about money that you owe on a fake invoice.
Yeah, and the real organization isn't going to report you as delinquent for a while because at the end of the day, they just want their money.
And you know what? If they don't get it, they're going to stop giving you the service. So, wait. Do nothing. And whatever you do, don't click any links sent your way. And if you actually owe somebody money, trust me, they're going to circle back.
It's all pretty zen. It's the do-nothing approach for the win.
Yep. And that is our tinfoil swan.
What the Heck with Adam Levin is a production of Loud Tree Media. You can find us online at adamlevin.com and on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Adam K. Levin.
Behind every empire are the people history tried to forget. Lost Roman Heroes tells the stories of the remarkable characters who shaped Rome from its mythical beginnings to its final fall.
Each episode blends armchair storytelling, sharp historical insight, and a bit of humor to bring these lost figures to life. From generals to scientists, from rebels to empresses, from priests to politicians, these lost Roman heroes have one thing in common.
They stood up for civilization when the bad guys threatened, and in doing so, they changed the course of human history. If you're into history that's vivid, surprising, and deeply human, this show's for you.
Behind every great meal is a person with a story to tell. Hear them on Culinary Characters Unlocked, the podcast that reveals the lives behind the food. Hosted by me, David Page, Emmy Award-winning journalist and creator of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, as I talk with everyone from culinary legends to mom-and-pop standouts about the creativity, grit, and passion that shape the food we love. Follow Culinary Characters Unlocked on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.